The Mental Health Show with Mark Aiston.
Imagine this. You're driving along in southern Iraq with the rest of your regiment, and all of a sudden you're hit by a roadside bomb. All hell breaks loose. Your life changes forever, and so do the lives of those you're with. Hi, I'm Mark Aiston, host of the Mental Health Show podcast series heard on the Auscast network. My guest is James Greenshields, and that is exactly what happened to the then Army officer. James, welcome.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, I really appreciate you having a chat to us. Look, a number of interviews I've done over the last 18 months are similar to yours in the sense that I speak to someone who's had a traumatic situation occur, then they've gone through some significant issues themselves, but in the end, they've come out the other end pretty well, but at the same time, they've also been helping others. Is that, in a general sense, how you feel your life has gone since the accident?
Yeah, totally, Mark, totally. I mean, Viktor Frankl's words from Man's Search for Meaning, that incredible book, where he says suffering ceases to be suffering when meaning is found. Basically, as a mantra that I lived for when I was in a really bad place, and when I found that meaning, it turned my life around, and then I just felt wanting to be of service in the first place.
Could you just explain to our listeners what happened, where you were, and how the accident occurred?
Yeah, certainly. So I was what's called a combat team commander in Iraq, in southern Iraq in 2006 and 7. So basically that meant I was a leader of over 100 soldiers doing reconstruction effort in southern Iraq. And on the 23rd of April 2007, my vehicle was hit by a roadside bomb. It was a bomb that was killing about 66% of people over there, or fatalities, with this particular bomb. We had no ability to defeat it. Luckily for me, they put too much explosive in it. It was a homemade thing. Lifted my 14.1 tonne armoured vehicle right off the road and left a 3-metre hole in the bottom of it. So I was chest high out of the vehicle at the time and received shrapnel wounds to the arm and to the head. And then, was able to survive. But we were in that incident for over 10 hours before we fought our way out. The mission continued. I didn't return until my tour finished. When I returned, though, part of me was still left back in Iraq. And my wife and my 18-month-old daughter at the time, they received partially their father/husband home. The rest of him was still away, was vacant. And whilst I tried my best to talk to my family, I didn't have the skills, the emotional skills. I thought there were 4 emotions in the army: fired up, pissed off, shattered and numb. And when I worked out that they actually aren't emotions, and they're not too helpful, that just left me going, what do I do? So I was high-functioning post-traumatic stress and depression case, and I moved through that period for over 12 months before, in the end, one night I couldn't even bath my 2-year-old daughter. She was having heaps of fun with me, which wasn't normal, because I would go out and I'd do all my work, do really well. No one would know what was going on for me inside. I'd come home, the pressure cooker came off, I'd relax, and then I moved through a lot of anger, but I had controlling tendencies. I found myself, levitating 4 feet off the top of the bed, reliving the bomb at night. And just things like that were a constant thing for my family to experience. There was a number of compounding factors involved, and one of them was that I had 110 lives on my shoulders, and I took that really, really personal. And the fact that this bomb, we had no ability to defeat it, less not being there. It became our nemesis, and my nemesis particularly, but luckily I lived through that one. I suffered from adjustment disorder substantially, and things weren't as they weren't a smooth transition for me to come home. My combat team got broken up and sent to the 4 winds, and so I gained that isolative feeling that a person with PTSD would know very, very well. So, I suffered my family suffered for 18 months, but they suffered for 12 months with me doing nothing about it and getting worse before I put my hand up. And then 18 months of what I would call short 18 months of a journey home to, if I suffer from anything now, it's post-traumatic growth. I've found that being hit by a roadside bomb was the 4th best day of my life because it made me wake up to my priorities in life.
Can you explain the sort of things you did initially that just weren't right, that wasn't you?
I became really controlling in a lot of things around the house. I wanted them a certain way. I'd become angry and aggressive if they weren't done that way. I would insist on having certain things, particularly my way. Basically became my way or the highway. So,
wow.
The effects I had on my family were quite substantial, but her eyes became the barometer for me. Because I had no emotional feeling and connection, I didn't know what I was feeling, when I was feeling. I'd use her eyes, and if her eyes start to dilate, I'd get out of there and get out of the situation, and I'd do something about it. And then come back. So my family started to see me taking ownership of my emotional outbursts, going away, doing something, and then coming back a more settled, more me. And that, again, started to redevelop the trust, because the trust was so broken.
And I know you touched on this earlier, but when did you say that you started to seek help about 12 months into that 18-month period?
Yeah, it was... my wife actually, I couldn't bath my daughter, and I didn't know what to do, and I had a massive conversation with myself in the mirror going, James, who are you, mate? You can take bullets, you can take bombs, you can't even bath your daughter, you're not a husband, a father, you're not a man. And then I turned around and there's my wife silhouetted in the door ready for another conversation, which went something on the lines of, if you don't get help, mate, I'm going to leave with the kids. I said, well, I don't know what to do, because I'm a fix-it type guy, I like being able to fix. I got my workshop, and all these type of things. And as a leader, people come to me and I help them develop situations and solutions, I should say. And I couldn't do this because I didn't understand what was going on for me, which was compounding the whole situation. So she said to me, she said, I've got this person I want you to come and listen to. And I listened to this guy stand up the front of a 3-day emotional intelligence workshop. And he stood there like he'd been in my living room for 12 months. And there was the key. I could resonate with him and his team. And he wasn't in the military. I didn't seek help in the military. I feared doing that because I feared that it would have repercussions on my career, and I was doing really well, and I didn't want that to happen. I also feared coming out of the closet and being seen as weak, because I was a frontline officer. Yeah,
which is an issue for males in particular, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah. So once that conversation happened, you sought help after that?
Totally.
Yeah.
And mind you, I didn't get better straight away. I actually went downhill. And because I started to wake up to not only what I'd realised I've been doing, but when I started to become aware of everything that I've been doing, my self-critique, my self-judgment went through the roof. So I actually went further into depression, to right to a point of suicidal ideation, before I actually started to come out of it and get better. And it was because I had to do so much emotional processing.
And what was the trigger for you starting to eventually start to get better, even though you were having treatment?
The big thing I needed to get to was the shame and the guilt that really stuck right down in the pit of my stomach for the wounds that I had given to my family because of, in my opinion, me chasing something that was all myself. In other words, my career, and charging overseas and almost leaving my wife a widow and my daughter fatherless.
Yeah.
And not only that, I had soldiers that I led throughout that tour for 7.5 months, and we were lucky to bring them all home alive. And so all of that really compounded, and there'll be some men that I know within the team have not recovered from post-traumatic stress.
Yeah.
And I've had to forgive myself for my part in that, and realise that I can control 3 things in life: my thoughts, my words, my deeds, and no one else's. And that's actually been a key critical understanding of mine as well.
Forgiveness can be the hardest thing to to do in certain situations, but it's wonderful that you were able to eventually get to that point. And then your life changed again. Tell us about the workshops. Tell us about the sorts of things you're doing now to help others.
Well, in line with what you said right at the start of the interview, Mark, people started to come to me when I started to get on my journey of recovery, and they said, can I have some time? And I said, dude, have you seen what I'm actually dealing with? Like, I can't help anyone. They said, well, actually, that's why we want to talk to you, because you seem to be able to navigate this quite well. And so we just sit and talk, and they'd talk to me about angry outbursts, and we'd have a bit of a laugh. And they said, I've never laughed with someone about my anger outbursts. And I said, dude, we'd be crying otherwise.
Only got the two choices.
Exactly right. So I trained up extensively with the group that I sought help with, and that was back in 2010, and that started a whole journey. And now we run a national charity called Resilient Leaders Foundation, where we help families particularly, but also communities that want us to come, and we help build resilience by going through very practical behavioural and understanding and experiential stuff that helps. We run a thing called the Young Warrior Project as well, which is a youth leadership program based on the rite of passage that the ancients of old have used right through the centuries. So it changed a massive course in my life. I left the military, and after 17 years, I had, everyone has ups and downs in a career, but I really was really humbled about my military career. I felt really grateful for that. And it's taken all that experience plus the turbulent times and been able to build on it. And so now we run these programs and have been doing now for quite some time. So yeah, it's all. And when I see, I just came out of a workshop last week, and a guy was having some real issues with control in his family, and to see the light bulb go on in the back of his head, and to know in myself that was once me going through that, and now because I've healed my wounds, I've forgiven myself, and I've trained myself to be able to do what I can do, I saw the light bulb in the back of his head, and I've just got feedback about him and his wife's first meeting, and it's like the possibilities are huge. It's up to them now, but I've been able to play my part in that.
Yeah,
exactly, and it's huge. So,
and what does that do for you?
No, I'm just I'm so grateful. I feel so humble about what. It's the reason why I joined the military in the first place was to serve others, and realistically, I've gone on and I'm doing now that in my own way, in a different way. It could be flippantly said that I used to train how to kill people, and now I'm helping people how to live. Sometimes I laugh a bit about it, but through adversity. I don't believe life tests us anymore. I believe life's conditioning us if we only allow it to. You don't just go to the gym and bench press 100 kilos. Now, I needed to train up to 60, 70, 80, 90 to bench press 100 kilos. And those times that I've had, it wasn't just the roadside bombing or many other things over in Iraq and around the place, which I've now come to a place of peace within myself and strength, inner strength, and to stand there and be able to help a man through that experience is, like I say, it's very humbling, and I'm exceptionally grateful that I can do that.
And yet, halfway through that 18 months, you're contemplating suicide. It's amazing how things can change around, isn't it?
Yeah, and I had everything to live for, Mark. I mean, I had an amazing, supportive wife. I had two, what I call incredible daughters. I had life all there, but I just couldn't see it. And it took us a flick of the switch, and I'm lucky I chose the path of, I won't call it least resistance, because suicide is the ultimate form of pain relief. And that's where I was. So
were you really close?
Yeah.
Well,
so,
when doctors talk to people about suicide, I guess the next question they ask is, did you start to think about how you were going to do it?
Oh, that was all there.
Yeah.
So
you were close. Yeah. Wow. Well, what's it done in terms of the relationship between you and your wife? What's this change of your life done for that relationship?
I didn't have any reference point about where my relationship could get to where it is now. And like, we're so close now. We constantly, every day we talk, and we talk openly. We talk from the heart. We express how it is for us. And we live with two daughters that they're now homeschooled by request. They came to us and asked to homeschool.
Is that right?
Yeah. And we've got a family which is so tight. My 12-year-old daughter comes to me to talk about sexual shame. And I have the ability to sit, to listen, to hold space and help her through it. And my 10-year-old daughter, who's teaching me a whole heap of other lessons, does does the same in her own way. And my relationship with my family is just incredible because I took ownership of where I was, and I put my hand up, and and I sought appropriate help that I resonated with. But the thing is, who heals a broken bone? The doctor doesn't. We have good support there, but it's our job. So I like to change the subject of mental health often from mental health to personal leadership, and to get just trained up to how to be a better personal leader about myself and taking ownership of the things which are mine and those which are not mine. I learned that as well. Because of my natural nature of wanting to help people, I often would take things on which I couldn't change, that I wasn't responsible for, and that
became a burden. And it became a burden, no doubt.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I guess that issue is sort of tied up with people who just continually say, yes, I'll do this, yes, I'll do that, yes, I'll do this for people, and in the end, of course, what it does is it means that they neglect themselves.
Exactly.
Do you have a faith?
My father was an Anglican priest and a Vietnam veteran and everything, and he once stood on the back of a 1974 Toyota Land Cruiser with a mob of Angus cattle behind us because he was also a farmer.
Yeah.
And I was 8, and he looks into the bush and he goes, "There's my God." Now, I didn't have the spiritual understanding to understand at the time what he was talking about. He passed in 2003, but part of my journey home, that's what I call my recovery now, was to understand what he said. He said, "There's my God, but you've got to go out and find your own." And so, I'm very deeply connected in my own way. It's an individualised belief system and spirituality, but it is exceptionally deep. And one of the things that I've found in all my work, both personally and professionally, is if someone's not connected to something, it doesn't matter what it is, but if someone's not connected to something deeper than themselves, then the level of resilience is actually quite low.
Yeah, it's a good point, yeah. Absolutely, yeah. It's all about passion, isn't it? That's what you're saying, yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. That's a really good point, and the passion is coming through loud and clear in the sense of you wanting to help others, but obviously in doing that, it's helping you as well and the people around you.
Totally.
How Dad passed away how long ago?
2003.
Did you say? And how long ago did you have the accident?
So 2007, so it was 4 years after he passed.
Okay.
When I came back from East Timor, I was quite depressed as well, and I sat with him for quite some time. And he was really instrumental in helping me through the process. And then Mum actually said to me about 2 years ago, she said, "It was sad that Dad wasn't here when you returned from Iraq." And out of my mouth came, "He couldn't be, Mum, otherwise I would never have recovered." Because he had post-traumatic stress, and he did the best he could, but if I didn't want him in the cattle yards, give me 2 minutes and I'd hit every trigger that I needed to eject him in a fit of anger, so that a 16-year-old could do the cattle work his way, which is the right way, obviously, for a 16-year-old. But he had his own demons. He couldn't pick me up too much from the school bus because he sat in shivers, reliving a bus that he'd put a whole heap of orphans on in Vietnam, and it went down the road 50 metres, got hit by a landmine in front of him.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
So he would relive all that experience, and he tried to get help back in the 80s, but no one was there, so his faith turned really, really deep. But there was emotional wounds that he carried to his deathbed, whereas what I realised is I needed to pick up the mantle that he'd given me, which was, this is something which you don't have to experience if you don't want to, but it's something you can only heal, James. And then I needed to go and do that and find ways to I don't believe in anger management. If you do that, then you're going into a thing called trigger avoidance, and good luck walking down the street trying to avoid triggers because they jump out at you all the time.
They do indeed, yes. They're everywhere.
Yeah, it's about going in and getting to the causal issue and releasing that emotional trigger underneath the story. And Dad left me that job to do, and I'm very humbled that I had the courage to actually stand up and take on that. They were the biggest demons. I mean, I was trained for the battlefield. I wasn't necessarily trained to go where I went inside, and I'll give you the big tip, which one I feared the most.
What would you say to Dad now, if you could talk to your dad? What would you tell him?
Me and Dad smile at each other quite regularly. It's just this acknowledgement. I no longer need his approval. For us men, a lot of the time we do things to seek people's approval, particularly our fathers.
That's true.
And I don't need his approval anymore. I've got my own. But at the same time, I stand shoulder to shoulder with him, knowing the amazing person that he was. At times, I didn't receive his love the way he was trying to give it to me, and I had to forgive myself for that, especially when I didn't realise I even grieved for him. I didn't start grieving for him until I started recovery from post-traumatic stress 5 years after he died. So, and I had to forgive myself for a lot of things, but now I stand shoulder to shoulder with him with a lot of love in my heart for him.
Perhaps a harder question. I mean, these are obviously hypotheticals, but with what you've been through and where you are now, what do you think he'd say to you?
Well done. I love you.
Gee whiz, it's a great story. It's when you pick it apart, there's been some dreadful downs. Obviously starting off with the accident, and then the 18 months after that. But it's a journey that's in the end set you on an extraordinary course. And I know that you touched on it earlier. It sounds odd, but for that explosion, for that vehicle to have been hit in a strange sort of a way was the best thing that could have happened. It's hard to say that, but it is so true.
It is, and it saved my marriage because we were almost at divorce when I left for Iraq. So Kirsty was the only one out of everyone around me that said he survived. Everyone else said he could have died. And there is a grand canyon of difference between those two statements.
So if people are interested in the workshops, how do they get in contact, James?
One of the easiest ways is to reach out to the Resilient Leaders Foundation via Facebook.
Yep.
That's where we keep everything up to date. Our website's actually an upgrade at the moment, but it is the resilientleadersfoundation.org. Yep. Or just reach out to me on Facebook, James Greenshields, and say good day. I put a lot of videos out that people tune into. I think that's how I met your producer, Nikki. And I love to just share messages of little learnings and tidbits that people can use, and I get a lot of feedback saying that people are using them, which is really cool.
James, thanks for joining us on the Mental Health Show. Absolutely inspiring, wonderful story, tough start, but an excellent, I'm not going to say ending, but an excellent journey you're on now, and an excellent journey you're on behalf of a lot of people. Thank you.
Thanks for the work you're doing too, mate. Sounds like an awesome program. Thank you.
Now, on the Mental Health Show, a motivational moment.
I lied and said I was busy. I was busy, but not in a way most people understand. I was busy taking deeper breaths. I was busy silencing irrational thoughts. I was busy calming a racing heart. I was busy telling myself I'm okay. Sometimes this is my busy, and I won't apologise for it.
See and listen to more now at AuscastNetwork.com.